Defender Chibike Ngwewu has replaced Calvin Bassey in the Super Eagles squad for international friendlies against Iran and Jordan. Wales suffered the agony of missing out on a second successive major tournament on penalties as they lost, their World Cup semi-final at home to Bosnia and Herzegovina following a shootout in Cardiff. And ahead of England's international friendly against Uruguay at Wembley Stadium, manager Thomas Tuchel has explained why Ben White was recalled and Trent Alexander-Arnold was left out, saying this is the last camp before the World Cup selection. Of course, and stresses that there are many ways of players to be impressed, for players to impress, beyond just the match itself. Of course, he's saying despite the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold has had more game time in the last few months than Ben White, it goes beyond that. Is Tuchel right to leave Trent Alexander-Arnold out of the England squad? Alexander Iwobi, is actually in the news. His stunning strike against, Tottenham Hotspur in that 2-1 win at Craven Cottage has been shortlisted for the Premier League's Match Goal of the Month award. And former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has reacted to the news that Mohamed Salah will leave the club at the end of the season, describing their time together at Anfield as unbelievable. Is Salah ahead of Steven Gerrard on the list of Liverpool greats of all time? And Manchester United are confident they can find other clubs to buy England international Marcus Rashford. Of course, if La Blaugrana FC Barcelona opt not to turn his loan into a permanent move for £26 million, has Rashford's market value increased or dropped during his loan spell right there at Barca? What's his current valuation in the transfer market? That's how we welcome you to Soccer Fan Zone on your fifth dial, Wave 91.7 FM. I'm Dan Dimino, the voice you trust and that million you probably need. They call me Patrick the Locker, that homeboy that's never at home. I lock around 247-365. I'm your host and guide. The show is interactive. Alright, so you can join the conversation, send your thoughts via WhatsApp and 070-4000-1783. So you get through to us via WhatsApp. And that's 070-4000-1783. So now, without much ado, let's start off from the home front, where Katsina United technical advisor Aziz Mohammed has expressed confidence ahead of the matchday 32 encounter against the Malia boys, Barao FC. The Changi boys will trade tackles with with Barao FC at the Sani Abacha Stadium, Kanu, this weekend. Mohammed has declared that his players are aware of the demand ahead of the game, and he says, that with fair officiating, his team would secure a positive result from that very encounter. So now let's move on to the camp of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, where Trabzonspor defender Chibike Ngwewu has replaced Calvin Bassey in the Super Eagles squad for international friendlies against Iran and Jordan. Bassey pulled out of the upcoming friendlies due to a back problem. Of course, centre-back sustained the injury during Fulham's 3-1 win over the Clarets Bunny at the Craven Cottage last weekend. It's the first time Ngwewu has been invited to the Super Eagles. The 22-year-old joined Trabzonspor from Austrian club Wolfsberger AC. That was back in January during the winter transfer window. Of course, the former Ambassador scored 2 goals and registered 1 assist in 10 league appearances for the Black Sea Storm. So now let's look at results from games played across different centres in Europe last night, where several games were played. Yeah, just so you know, on Thursday, in a bid to determine which countries which will clinch the final spots of the final spots at the 2026 FIFA World Cup in USA, Mexico, and Canada, Wales suffered the agony of missing out on a second successive major tournament on penalties as they lost their World Cup their playoff semi-final at home to Bosnia and Herzegovina following a shootout in Cardiff. Craig Bellamy's side and looked on course to set up a playoff final against Italy as they led by 1-0 in the second period, only to concede a late equalizer before losing on penalties as they did to Poland exactly 2 years earlier, in the Euro 2024 playoff final. Elsewhere, Paddy McNair renewed a missed opportunity for Northern Ireland as their World Cup dreams were crushed by Italy. The defender felt the hosts were there for the taking in the playoff semi-final in Bergamo, which ended in a 2-0 loss for Michael O'Neill's men. Of course, Turkey beat Romania by a goal to nothing, and Denmark won by 4 goals to 0 against North Macedonia. Poland fought back to see off Albania by 2 goals to 1. Slovakia and Kosovo played out, a 4-3 thriller. Victor Gyökeres scored all 3 goals for Sweden, who beat, Ukraine by 3 goals to 1 in another encounter. But then, we also saw Czechia play out a 2-2 draw with Republic of Ireland. Yeah, Czech Republic, if you like to call them, and pull through 4-3 on penalties. So the playoffs will be seen on Tuesday. Yeah, right there in Europe, same day. And Bosnia, we're talking about Bosnia against Italy, Sweden against Poland, Kosovo against Turkey, and of course for Czechia, that's Czech Republic, 8 a date with Denmark. Now, let's tell you that, ahead of England's friendly against Uruguay at Wembley Stadium, head coach of the side, Thomas Tuchel, has explained why Ben White was recalled and Trent Alexander-Arnold was left out of this course. He says this is the last camp before World Cup selection and stresses that there are many other ways players, there are many other ways of players to impress, all right, beyond just the matches itself.
It's just a choice, and a difficult choice, and maybe a hard choice, and maybe to a certain degree maybe unfair, but these choices have to be made. The choice was for Ben White because I saw him play here in the final, the cup final against Manchester City. He played the Champions League match, I think, before, and was straight away back to his old self. It was the chance for me to meet him in person, to see how he interacts with the group. I think I know what Trent can give us, so the choice was for Ben, to call Ben up, and for Tino Livramento on the right side to stick with the guys who actually had the good camps with us in September, October, November. They also need the minutes. There are a lot of players on this position, Chad Spence as well, who fight also for a ticket, so I didn't want to leave them out. I leave a player like Trent out, and we had a call. I tried to explain the situation, but just has to accept it.
Well, you guys, they just have to accept the fact that, Trent was dropped. Of course, there's Ben White making a return to the Three Lions camp. Trent Alexander-Arnold has had more game time than Ben White. Let's say in the last 2 months, or 3, as the case may be. But then he says it goes beyond that. At least he saw Ben White in the Carabao Cup final against Manchester City. So is Thomas Tuchel right to leave Trent Alexander-Arnold out of the England squad? And what are his chances like? That's Trent Alexander-Arnold going into the Mundial. That's the FIFA World Cup in USA, Mexico, and Canada. Let's have you join a conversation, all right? Is Thomas Tuchel right to leave Trent Alexander-Arnold out of the England squad, going into the Mundial in USA, Mexico, and Canada? No, well, it's not the final squad anyways, but then the last camp before the FIFA World Cup this summer. It happens to be the last camp. And for the guys who are part of the squad, they'll most likely retain the places for the most part. Some changes will be made, but not so much. Is there still a chance for Trent Alexander-Arnold going into the Mundial, the FIFA World Cup in USA, Mexico, and Canada? Let's have you join a conversation, alright? So keep it us coming. Send the thoughts via WhatsApp and 070 4000 1783. It's how you get through to us via WhatsApp. And that's 070 4000 1783. Okay, so that's how you get through to us. Now let's step on the brakes to pay some bills. When we return, we'll look at some other stories making the rounds on the gossip column. It's still Soccer Fan Zone on Wave 91.7 FM. I'm Patrick the LUKER. Stay here.